Good evening. I want to welcome everybody on behalf of the National Veterans Leadership Foundation. My name is Keenan Delaney, and Mike Carroll, our COO, is joining us. This is our first career seminar leveraging LinkedIn this year. Again, I'm sure you all just saw, but I want to say, please note that tonight's session will be recorded and available on the NVLF's website, as well as sent to all of your military and veteran service office leads. So feel free to view again, go to our website, get it, go to your offices and get it, share it with your friends. We think you got some good, we'll have some good information for you guys tonight. If you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll have a Q&A afterwards, and these guys will be monitoring the chat to stop and answer questions as they go along. Also, everyone that's on the call right now, if you would go in the chat and tell us which school you're representing, where you are currently enrolled and are attending school. We'd love to know just how many of our schools are represented across the board here tonight. So you get a chance, just go in the chat and tell us what school you guys are representing. And so with that, tonight we have two facilitators for leveraging LinkedIn who are joining us again. They ran this session last year. It was our most popular session, our most well-attended, so we asked them to come back. Amjad Osman, who is the Senior Customer Success Manager, Enterprise Sales Solutions at LinkedIn. He is also the co-founder of Greenlight Venture Partners and a co-founder and executive producer of a sports podcast called Inside the Green Room. He never sleeps because he's got multiple jobs. And then Jim Goddard, who is currently an account executive at Asana in Chicago and is formerly worked as a solutions consultant, large enterprises, and relationship manager at LinkedIn. So these both guys have LinkedIn experience, know the tool well. Jim also is a United States Marine and worked as a military community advocate while undergrad at Ohio State. So Amjad is, were your parents in service? I know your brother was a Marine. You say your military sibling. Yep. Yeah, so he's a military sibling. So they both come with a lot of experience and background as to what you all are going through tonight. Currently, they know how powerful this tool is in the civilian world and how powerful it can be and helpful for you all. And so with that, I'm going to turn tonight's discussion over to Jim. So Jim, take it away.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Keenan. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody, for joining. How we're going to break down tonight is we'll start with kind of a presentation. So if you were on here earlier, I have a handful of slides to kind of walk you through how to build out your LinkedIn profile. And then we'll turn it over to my partner in crime here, and he'll kind of flip the script and show you what recruiters from companies see when they're actually using the tool to find candidates. Before I dive into it, I'm like pretty informal. So if you have something that you want to see, like feel free to add it into the chat there. If you think something that I'm saying isn't true, call me out on it. If you think I'm lying, absolutely call me out on it. Like happy to talk through it. There's no real right or I don't want to say wrong because I think there is a wrong, but there's no real right or wrong on LinkedIn, right? It's like kind of a representation of who you are. So if you don't want to do something, there are things that I don't have on my profile that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So yeah, just kind of keep it open. Would also love like questions and comments. This is going to be really bad if I'm just talking to you for 30 minutes. So the more conversations we have, the better it is. And feel free to like just interrupt me or somebody else can monitor the chat because I'm going to be on a full screen. outside of that, if you want to turn on your camera, wonderful. If not, also cool. And then last thing I'll offer, and I don't know if Keenan had mentioned this previous, but if you want to like chat one-on-one at some point in time, like happy to do that. You guys are going to all have our contact information. You can find me on LinkedIn. I did that with a couple of folks last year, so happy to do that again if you're wanting a more detailed approach and look into things. Okay, cool. Everybody good? Any questions before we get started?
And Jim, I'll keep an eye on the chat for you as well. And the second half of this conversation, we're gonna, like I said, go live into the actual tool so you guys can see the platform, and we'll show you some real life examples of that too. But if there's anything that comes up, anything specific you care to see, again, we can keep this relatively informal. So, this is your time. Let's make the most of it here together.
Cool. I also have a daughter. I have two daughters. One is 2 and the other is like 6 weeks. So if it gets loud here, sorry. And of course, I didn't charge my headset. So we're just gonna roll with it. And yeah, we'll make do. So sorry about that. But before we start, maybe like a thumbs up or a quick, I don't know, whatever. Everybody have a LinkedIn profile? All right, seeing some thumbs up, seeing a yes. All right, amazing. All right, for the most part, we're just gonna go with everybody has, yeah, all good. Okay, amazing. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it, and then we'll jump into it. I'm looking at it.
Good to go. Yep.
Okay, amazing. All right, and you guys will have access to this deck. There isn't anything super classified or super secret in here that we can't share with you. But I think first and foremost, it's important to start with like why LinkedIn and what we are. And we'll start with like the vision of the company. And as Keenan said, I worked there for a couple of years. I'm not like trying to sell you on LinkedIn. It's a great place to work if you can make that happen. But I think it's important to understand why the platform is there and then what companies use it for, because I didn't know that before I worked there. So you can see here kind of like the vision of the organization. Long story short, in summary, a lot of companies spend a lot of money to have access to the members of LinkedIn, right? So you'll probably notice that you get messages, that you get people reaching out to you. You can find jobs on LinkedIn, and people pay big bucks in order to have that access and to be able to use that network. We're at north of 1 billion members, right? Did I see that, Amjad? This like past week?
Right. That's right. That's right. Yep.
So one of the largest networks across the world. There's a pretty cool stat. What is it, like 4 members every second or 2 members every second? So it's absolutely a place where you can find a community. You can find more about organizations. You can find about jobs, all kind of housed in one spot. And that is their mission. So a little detail down from the vision. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about profile versus resume. Hopefully, this isn't the first time you've seen this, but a resume, generally speaking, again, this is school of me. Resume should be kind of like 1 page, right? And so if you're like me, you now have had a couple of jobs, and you've maybe had a couple different billets in the military, and so maybe getting rid of or removing some of those less important details from your resume is the right thing to do. But I would encourage you to leave that on your LinkedIn profile, right? You're not going to run out of room. You can add different positions, right? If you were promoted through the ranks, make sure you have kind of that story. You can tell that within your profile. A couple of key takeaways from today. Accessing premium. So you, as a veteran, you are eligible for LinkedIn Premium for free up to, I believe it's 12 months. Sometimes they let it go longer. So I wouldn't tell them that you've had it for longer if that's the case. You can sign up for that for free. If you are, maybe you're 18 months away from graduating and 18 months away from looking for a role, maybe hold off on that until, you're 12 months away. And so you don't have to pay for that extra 6 months, or, fork over your credit card and do that. I'll let Amjad speak to that a little bit later. The second thing is making sure that your profile is as built out as you want it to be, and then engaging with right audience members, right? So, there's no better time to practice and reaching out. You got a couple of people, a couple of new faces, myself included today. Practice shooting a note, practice sending an email, and you'll kind of like get the cobwebs off and kind of go from there. All right, I can't see any faces, so we're gonna do some honesty here, but I would say, is any of you out there have access to a Bumble or a Tinder? Anybody on any of the online dating profiles? Kieran, you're shaking your head. I feel like you're lying. That's okay if you're not. There's no shame here. Andy, you're like front and center on my screen. I feel like you're a guy that's got a Bumble profile. No, David, you're smiling, so it definitely means you are.
Hinge is the popular one these days, Jim. I know you've been out of the game for.
Yeah, I've been out of the game. So admittedly, I did meet my wife on Bumble. And the point of bringing that up is, recruiters are humans, right? They're going to look for a profile picture. So make sure that your profile picture represents who you are, right? A nice smile is always a great thing. Being dressed professionally in the Marine Corps, every year we had to take promotion pictures, right? Don't use that picture. You probably have a better one of yourself. If you are studying finance or you're wanting to go into consulting, my recommendation would be that your profile it matches the role that you want it to be in. So in those two cases, you probably want to be in a suit and a tie and a jacket, or the matching attire for the ladies. I work in technology, right? So jeans and a blazer is absolutely the right uniform there. And frankly, a three-piece suit would probably turn off a recruiter in the tech space. So just make sure that that is something that you want to represent yourself. Find a background, something easy, use the portrait mode on your phone, have a friend take a picture. And again, you can see here, there's some stats. When you have a picture, you're going to have more likely people are going to look, they're going to be more active with your profile. Any questions on that? Amazing. You can add a background photo here. If you look at my profile, mine is a picture of the shoe over there in Columbus. A great way to, add something that allows you to kind of like break the ice. You can see here, Joe Peppers has got a picture of Wrigley Field. If you're passionate about, something, whether it's, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's horses, maybe it's Ohio State football, right? You can use it as a great way to kind of like make connections. I'm admittedly not the biggest Ohio State fan, but if I understand the size of that network and the powers of that, particularly here in the Midwest. So I'm absolutely will use that to my advantage and would encourage you all to do the same in your profile building. Any questions so far? Nothing. You guys are making this way too easy for me. All right. Headlines. So this is going to be the first thing that recruiters see when they search for you. We'll dive into that a little bit later. But you want it to be a mix of kind of like who you are personally and professionally. If you're a student, if you guys are all students, if and when you're transitioning, if you're trying to figure out what your next step is, saying that in your headline is absolutely okay, right? Army veteran transitioning into my next role, studying finance, studying accounting, whatever you're studying. You can see here, there's a couple of different versions that they have. In this case, this was my colleague Sarah, who used to run the program, the veterans program at LinkedIn. But find different things that you're passionate about and throw that in there. Again, a great way for you to personalize your profile, and hopefully you can find a kind of a mutual connection with the folks that you're wanting to read it. Building out your summary. So in this area, this is different than your resume, more of an area to tell a little bit more about yourself. So think of it as embellishing that storyline that that headline that we just talked about in the previous slide. But a couple sentences here of, for folks in the military, right? I always, whenever I'm interviewing, I talk about being an agile learner and being able to adapt to new scenarios, right? Everybody in the military has had to do that at some point in time. Being able to be a leader, to take responsibility for things, to step up when it needs to be. So putting all of those things in your summary here is a great way to tell your audience a little bit more about who you are, what you're looking for, what your next steps are. If you're somebody that has a family, like I said, I have 2 daughters, right? So I don't think that's in my profile yet, but that is absolutely something that I bring up whenever I speak with, recruiters, whenever I'm interviewing, because that's important to me. And I want folks on the other end to know that that's a priority for me. Any questions here? I've seen it done in the third person. Personally, I think it's a little awkward. I think it's a little weird. I'm curious, Amjad, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends. I wrote my own bio in first person, but I've seen some people that have executive assistants and things like that are, you know, very senior in their organization, CEOs, that kind of thing, who'll have someone else write their bio for them. I think as you're getting started and as you're going through your career, keep it in first person so that it speaks to you and it sounds like you and it's authentic to you. And then, you know, one day when you have an executive assistant or an admin, you can have her or him write you a glowing bio on on their behalf.
I love it. I love it. I couldn't agree with you more. And hopefully I'm there one day. The second piece that I would encourage you all to do is to encourage is when you're adding your experience, make sure that you're adding the correct organizations and the correct companies, right? So you can freeform type into your experience that you worked for the US Army. If you spell it incorrectly, LinkedIn will allow you to ultimately put it on there. So you want to make sure that you're tagging the right US Army. The reason being, when recruiters search for, there's a box within the recruiter filters where they can check to find veterans. If you have the incorrect version of your branch of service checked, you will not show up as a veteran. So make sure that you have that detailed and dialed in. Articulating your experience. Again, hopefully I'm not the first person to tell you this as you're transitioning. But, you know, in the military is very different than, I guess it's not very different, but the jargon that we use in the military is very different than the jargon that corporate recruiters are used to, unless they have a military background, right? So if you said that you were in charge of a squad of Marines, everybody on this call probably realizes that you've managed 12 to 15 individuals. Somebody who's working in corporate at any number of companies likely won't understand what that means. If you said that you were promoted from fire team to squad to platoon, like, again, that probably doesn't show progression for anybody outside of the military. So make sure that you are translating your military terminology into words that somebody in the civilian sector would understand. And a great way to kind of like do a litmus test on that is bouncing it off of, if you have a family member or somebody that is not in the military, saying like, hey, does this make sense to you? Do you understand what I did here? In the Marines, we would do a fitness report annually, right? And that would have all of your like accomplishments, right? And the first resume I created post getting out of the Marine Corps was basically just copying and pasting my fitness reports because frankly, I was pretty proud of the work that I did. But it didn't land with any of the recruiters that I shared that resume with. They didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't understand why I was doing it, why I was so proud of it, until I was able to then translate that into terms that they all understood. Showing progression within your career, right? So if you were promoted from a squad leader to a platoon guide, to a platoon sergeant, to a company sergeant, right? Those are all things that you're wanting to highlight. Showing that if you can quantify, right? So if you've managed X number of individuals, if you've maintained a training budget of a certain number of dollars, if you maintained equipment worth X amount of dollars, those are all really important things that will pop out to folks that are reviewing your profile. And again, will show more of the quantifiable side of the work that you've done in the military. Cool. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I've got a question for you, sir.
Yeah, fire away.
This is Carl I. Assuming I came in a few minutes late, I apologize. Since Mike set this up, assuming the majority of people on the call are former military or veterans and students, are there any samples of really strong LinkedIn profiles that you went, wow, this one kind of hit it, that maybe after this you could leave in the chat or so we go out there and look? I mean, everything you're saying, it makes a ton of sense. I've heard some of it before. Some of it's brand new. Thank you very much. But I'm assuming there might be a handful out there that you, maybe yourself, but that you went, this guy or gal really hit it really well in terms of getting the kind of attraction that you want to get from a recruiter. Particularly, I didn't realize there were some challenges there with regard to what service you were in. I mean, I saw the U.S. Army logo for Stanley McChrystal, but there's retired soldier, soldier for life. There's different logos for the Army, if you will. So, were you saying the spelling was it that screws up the checkbox for the veteran if the recruiter's looking for a veteran, or is there something else in there that buzzwords that they're looking for as well? So, twofold question. Good example, and then secondly, making sure we get it right the first time on the LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that, Carl. So thanks for the clarification there. And I feel like you're looking at my playbook here, which is wonderful. So first part that I would call out is stealing is not like a great word, and like maybe don't copy and paste exactly, but take a look at folks that have a profile. Feel free to look at mine if mine matches any of the things that you've done. Feel free to look at Laura Keenan is another great one. I can send these names out, but what I did when I was building out my profile was I took a look at some of my peers, folks that I know had served, had transitioned into roles into a career that I found interesting, and basically took their bullets and kind of changed them into fit my background, right? So if you were promoted from, X to Y to Z, if you managed a group of, whatever, being able to put that into your profile into, bite-sized fragments that fit what your background is. I think a big time caution, like don't put anything in your background that you did not do, right? That I would never suggest that, and don't put any of that on a resume. But make sure that if you like the way somebody worded it, like borrow it, use it. Feel free to take from the kind of like best in practice there. Second part of your question is making sure that you have the right logo. If you can see my cursor here, it's circling over the U.S. Army one. For example, so when I was in the Marines, my battalion was Combat Assault Battalion. We fell under the 3rd Marine Division. There are employers on LinkedIn called Combat Assault Battalion, called 3rd Marine Division. They would not, if I were to put that as my previous employer, right, in terms of my experience, I would not then show up as a veteran, right? So I would need to put the correct United States Marine Corps logo that I have on my profile in there to make sure of that. And then in the subcategories, I put, platoon commander for blah, 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 part of 3rd Marine Division, right, is how I have broken that down. But you really want to make sure that you have the call outs there with the U.S. Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine Corps.
Jim, there's one question here from Kieran. Kieran, if you don't mind coming off of mute and just giving us a little bit more context around your question, I want to make sure we understand exactly what you're asking here.
No, I appreciate the space. So Jim, you've provided some great examples so far, right? And definitely from a veteran's perspective, but I think we do have students not only here, but probably on this call who are leaders, but their dependents or spouses. Just looking for some advice on what we could share with them on how they can, it's a trickier balance of tying in their experience and being connected to the military community. So I just thought we could bring that a little to the forefront. Thank you.
Thanks for calling that out. So a couple of things, and it's been a couple of years since I've worked at LinkedIn. So if this isn't true, I'm sorry, but I'm 99% certain that military spouses are also eligible for that free year of LinkedIn Premium. So know that. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And then the second thing that I would call out is my former colleague, Mishu, her husband was in the Air Force. And so she was not a veteran. She's a military spouse, but she was one of the leaders within our veterans ERG. So I would encourage you to take a look at her profile. I don't know if she's changed it since then, but she had a really great way of building out her profile to, tell the story of, relocating every 2 to 3 years in support of her husband. They have kids, so managing a household as well as managing her professional life. And there are definitely ways to do that. We also will talk about this later on in the course, but LinkedIn Learning, there are specific courses designed for veterans and military spouses on how to best maximize your profile as each of those individuals. So there should be some information within there that we can get you some definitely, some better information on it. And again, happy to make connections to Mishu or if others, if those spouses want to have a conversation or kind of like dive a little deeper.
I appreciate that. I gave my staff homework assignment over the break is that they have to build their LinkedIn page and share it with everybody. So I have vets and dependents on staff, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, cool. And so I had mentioned this a little bit earlier, but kind of like drilling down into really understanding like what was your day to day, right? So there's as a platoon sergeant, as a squad leader, as a company commander, that's a very much a big umbrella, a catch-all, and want to make sure that you're able to, explicitly explain what you actually did in your day to day, right? So managing 200 individuals, a company commander role, that's pretty impressive, right? In the corporate world here in America, if you're managing more than 10, it's like a pretty big deal. And that's kind of like day one table stakes in the military. So make sure that you are highlighting that. Again, quantifying with dollar amounts, if you have them, are all great ways to add to that. You can add media to your profile, right? Whether this is in education or in what you actually did in the military, adding those different pieces in there allow people to really get a better understanding of maybe what the day in the life of a squad leader looks like. Why is this something that, why would a helicopter pilot be a good technical advisor, within our organization? So being able to highlight this is, something that will allow folks to get, again, a better grasp of what your background is like. Adding skills. So this is something that I would absolutely recommend. I will talk about that here in a little bit. Keenan, I'm going a little long-winded here, so I'm going to kind of speed through these next couple of slides. But adding skills is a great way to build out your profile and allow recruiters to specifically find you. Again, the big caveat here is I would make sure that, if you're saying that you know how to use, PowerPoint or Excel, is that you actually do know how to do that. And you can prove that, kind of in that job interview. Adding your education, any sort of licenses, certifications. If you were scuba qualified while your time in the military, CPR qualified. If you took classes in the Marine Corps, we had Marine Online. Any of those different things, feel free to add those in there. Obviously, you guys are in school now, so make sure that you're tying those all as well in there too. Volunteer experience is huge as well. This is a great way, again, try making connections when you are in those interviews. So if you can add that in there. Yeah, was that a question? Nope, I think we're still good. Okay, so make sure that you add that in there, again, highlighting, who you are as a well-rounded individual. Getting and seeking recommendations. So, you're in the military for a couple of years. You probably had somebody write an eval on you, whether it was a senior officer or a peer, reaching out to them, asking them to maybe write a paragraph or so about the work that you've done. I would make sure that when you're asking for those recommendations, that it's somebody who knows you. I don't really know any of you super well, so if you all ask me for an interview at the end, or if you ask me to write your recommendation at the end of today's session, I'd probably say no. But if this is a professor that you've worked with, maybe over the course of a couple of semesters, that person knows you pretty well, they understand your work, that would be appropriate then to go to that person and say, hey, would you be willing to do this? And would always recommend kind of the helping somebody out, right? So be willing to write them a review as well. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper in Amjad's session, but this is kind of the glance of how recruiters can search for you within the platform. So you see here that they're able to filter by a program manager in San Francisco that is a military veteran, right? And you can see here, this then filters down into a very specific targeted audience. But bring that up as, again, to double down on the importance of finding the right branch and making sure that they see you. To that first kind of bullet, again, want to make sure that you have the right branch tied into your profile, making sure that you have your profile views, profile picture up there, making sure that your skills are out there as well. Another great feature within LinkedIn is allows you to kind of build out that network. So, if you're looking to, go to work at Amazon, finding folks at Amazon that went to Ohio State, finding folks at Amazon that are also were also in the Army or are veterans, reaching out to them saying, hey, I don't know you, but, I'm also a veteran. I see you're at this company. Would love to have a conversation with you. Would love to buy you a cup of coffee. Would love to learn more about your role. That's absolutely something that's appropriate. Absolutely something that, people love hearing that and love having conversations about it. You can see here, you can add more filters when you're looking for folks. Some of these are going to come with the premium features, and we'll dive into that here in a second. But great ways to build out that network and kind of find the right person you're looking for. Finally, I would say is like tap your alumni networks. If you're at a larger school, even if you're at a smaller school, making sure that you're making all of those connections. When I look at companies that are interesting to me and I'm looking for jobs in those companies, I'm absolutely reaching out to folks that went to OSU. I'm absolutely playing the veteran card, reaching out to veterans that work there. Again, really trying to make sure that I'm able to beat the masses of applications that are coming in and have somebody kind of walk my resume to that hiring manager's desk. Employee resource groups, ERGs, these are groups of like-minded individuals at companies. So for example, LinkedIn has about a dozen probably, one of which is the Veterans Employee Resource Group. And that was pretty common, right? Veterans would reach out, they would want to learn more about LinkedIn, and we would have a conversation with them. So make sure that you're tapping into those networks too.
We got a good question here, Jim from Gage. Gage, I'm going to read the question. If you want to add a couple of a little bit of context, feel free to do that. But it says, do we have any information on most used words, searched by industry, job, etc.? If we had this info, it could be useful to set up our resumes and profile sections so that recruiters could be more likely to attract or reach out to us. So, Jim, I'll let you add your 2 cents and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, Gage, good question. I think what you're looking for is like, should you tailor, based on job description, should you tailor your resume and or your LinkedIn profile to that job description? I would say yes for the resume. I would maybe say hold off on the changing your LinkedIn profile for every job that you are applying to. If you have the time for it, great, go ahead, but that could get a bit monotonous. When you see a job posting on LinkedIn, it is going to ask for certain things, right? Where was the screen? Right, when recruiters are searching, they're going to be looking for things like this, right? So the more skills that you have, program management, if you're a computer programmer, C++, SQL, right? If you have those things in your profile as skills, you're going to then show up in these different groups of people that have engaged with that organization. If it's a company like Amazon and you see yourself working there, you want to work there, you should follow that company. That's engage with their brand, like their posts, like comment on things. That's going to then put you in this bucket of 69 out of 617.
The only other thing that I would add to, Gage, is that, again, this is where the distinction between this being your profile, your living, breathing sort of document that represents you versus your resume, right? You want to be as specific to your experience and your background as you possibly can be, because when you go and you apply for certain jobs, you're gonna the recruiters are gonna be able to tell whether or not you have the right skill set or experience, or if they even want to have a conversation with you in the first place. I'd say focus less on tailoring your profile to fit a job or a specific thing you're looking for, and focus more on making sure your profile is as robust as it could possibly be, and that it's comprehensive and it's got all the right details. Because if you're a match for a job, they're going to go through and they're going to look at all the different things that make you stand out anyway. And I think having those key elements in place is more important than necessarily fine tuning your profile. Unless the only other caveat that I would add is, if you are a software developer, right, for example, and you are only pursuing software development jobs as a software engineer, then I'd say, by all means, go and look at every job description that Google and Microsoft and OpenAI and all these different places have in place, and leverage the way that they've kind of described some of the things so that you can make sure under each job that you have a line in there that says something about your experience in regards to whatever the qualifications or the preferred experience says on that job description.
Right, I can understand that, and I appreciate your answers. But I'm coming from a perspective of my, from my customer base, which is a lot of college students. Some of these guys are getting out of the military and looking for internships, looking for first-time jobs, and trying to figure out, how to use the words that you have, like you were mentioning before, being a squad lead, everything like that, and trying to cater that, and trying to transition that into something else. It's kind of difficult. So if we had a list of most used words in certain industries, because I have people who are hoping to get into nursing, dental, manufacturing. It just depends. And if we had something to go off, so whenever I'm helping somebody in our office at Columbus State, say, okay, so I see you did these things. No, I'm not trying to lie to anybody. I'm trying to use words that is going to get someone attracted to my people, because I know my people are going to be good fits for the job. So that's why I was looking for those words specifically.
You want to translate military language into what potentially could be understood by a recruiter, right? Looking at a profile.
No, I could do that. I could do that all day. But I need to know from these other industries where what they want, because I'm interested personally in computer engineering. So I know how to fit mine for computer engineering. But when I'm trying to help other people in their industries, trying to go for what they want, it's a little harder.
Yep. My recommendation would be that you take a look at different job descriptions, right? So if it's an accountant, right? So an accountant job description at KPMG, at Deloitte, at whatever firm, my guess is like entry-level accountant is going to be the same general qualifications, right? And so what you could do is you could take a look at that job description and you could put it into a word cloud. You could kind of like comb through and understand, like, they're probably looking for somebody who's analytical. They're probably looking for somebody who has experience in, Microsoft Excel, right? All of these different things that are pretty consistent across the board. I personally, I don't have that list. I don't know that list is available.
Okay.
My guess is if it is, it would probably be stale because job descriptions change often.
Right.
And so I would encourage you to encourage it sounds like your clients or the students that are doing that to take a look at a couple of job descriptions, read through them. If there are things that I'm a sales guy, right? So like being able to have a conversation with C-suite leaders is in just about every enterprise sales job description, right? Being responsible for quarterbacking a cross-functional sales team is just about every single job description that I would be interested in, right? And so to me, I know that, okay, I've spoken to a commanding general as a 22-year-old second lieutenant, right? Briefing him on a convoy op, right? I can do that. I know that I worked with, all of the S shops when I was in the Marines to make sure that my team could go out on a mission and come back at night, right? So being able to understand, like, what does cross-functional communication mean, and then translating it into terms that you can then tell a story on it's not an easy task by any means, but I would encourage them to look and be job specific with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, and I'm going to do quick 3 more slides, and then I'm going to pass it over because I am bleeding into Amjad's time badly.
That's all right. That's all right.
I appreciate that. We had mentioned a couple of LinkedIn Learning courses. You can see here we have kind of like pictures of these. I would recommend jumping in there, poking around. You can see there are a couple minute videos. They're going to tell a lot of the things that we've reviewed today. And they have stuff for translating your military skills. You can see these to help out with your elevator pitch, understanding how to negotiate your salary. If there are conversations around getting promoted, you can see that information in there as well. And again, this is a snapshot of our veterans page within LinkedIn.com, where you can find different access to, whether it's as a veteran, for employers, or then for spouses. Cool. I'm happy to continue conversations. I would ask that maybe we can turn it over to Amjad and I have those conversations with you all, later on this week, and go from there, unless there's anything absolutely burning that anybody wants me to cover before we jump.
Awesome. Thank you for that, sir.
You all
So
appreciate
I'm sharing my screen here. Jim, can you see my LinkedIn feed? Perfect. So if you missed it in the very beginning, Jim talked about the fact that the LinkedIn network is continuing to grow, right? There's more than 1 billion members on the platform, more than 50 million companies on here, a ton of different organizations and groups. And so I want to just show you a few different examples. First and foremost, I think one of the easiest things all of you should do is download the app, right? The app is an easy way for you to go to conferences and summits and events, or just be out and about in your own existing life and meeting people and connecting with folks on the go, right? When you go to conferences, if you open up the app and you go to the search bar to search for somebody, right to the right of that search bar, there's a QR code that'll pop up. So instead of having to carry business cards, you can just show people the QR code and they can scan it and they can connect with you directly. So highly recommend you use the app. Next, on the actual platform here, what I'm going to do is I want to share with you a couple of examples. One of them is one of my colleagues, Nick Black. As you can see here, he put in his headline, in his name, Captain USMC veteran, right? And so he's made it very clear that, he's a veteran. We'll talk a little bit more about his profile here in just a second. He enabled what's called creator mode on his profile, right? Creator mode allows you to add these hashtags here, right? So it talks about veterans, leadership, financial education, right? A number of other things that matter to him. And what that allows him to do is to add that featured section that Jim talked about, right? Here, he doesn't have anything featured, but he's got his about section. He's got his work experience, right? If we scroll down, you can see LinkedIn is here, right? The other thing that I want to highlight for you here is he's a little bit older than myself, right? 1994 to 2000, he was in the United States Marine Corps. He's got that experience on here as well. He's got his title here, right? You can see the logo here. So it's very easy that when recruiters are looking for veterans, or specifically looking for folks in the United States Marine Corps, he comes up as someone that has that experience, right? So a really easy and important way for all of you to showcase your work experience, right? And you can see he's got more than 13 different work history experiences, things that he's involved in, right? If we scroll down a little further, you can see all his education. He's got a ton of different information in here, down all the way to his high school, right? So you can see, it can kind of track back, right? The other thing that he has is all the different licenses and certifications that he's earned. So I know a number of you have earned different certifications and licenses. And so you can talk about that. You can showcase it here, right? Some of these credentials, you can actually go and see them on another site so that you can verify that as well. So a lot of really powerful information. Jim also talked about the skills section, right? So he's done a number of different things here that he can talk about, 50 different skills, right? All the different organizations he's a part of. So a lot of really valuable information here that allows for people to understand who exactly is Nick, what does his voice sound like, right? He even added in here a little video.
Congratulations, you have successfully clicked on my LinkedIn profile video.
Right?
It's
Kinda
Nick
cool.
Black. I am one of the few select enterprise-wide sales leaders here at LinkedIn.
Right? So he can he introduces himself briefly to the audience that's looking at his LinkedIn profile. Jim mentioned his colleague, Laura, right? So this is Laura's profile here. She also has creator mode on, right? If we scroll down, you can see she has a featured section, right? Where she highlights specific things that she wants every single person to see on her profile when you land on her page, right? Some of it talks about the military. Some of it talks about age of disinformation, right? If we scroll down a little bit further, again, she has a bio here, and I'm going to talk about this here in just a second. She talks a little bit about her career, right? Working at the Pentagon, U.S. Cyber Command, all these different things that are relevant to her day-to-day job, or were relevant to her day-to-day job, that now can be translated into plain English for folks that don't necessarily speak military jargon. She has here, right, United States Military Academy at West Point. If we scroll through her experience, you can see she does a really great job of describing to you every single thing that she's done in any one of these roles here, right? It can look a little bit daunting, but what you can do is you can go and you can open up ChatGPT, which is free, right? Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, how to leverage some of these tools. Go to ChatGPT. All you need is an email, and you can literally talk to ChatGPT, and you could write a bio about yourself, and you could say, ChatGPT, this is who I am. I'd like for you to summarize this for me in 2 sentences, right? Or you can go to a job description if you can find one, or you can describe your job in the military in any sort of fashion, put it in here and say, summarize this into 2 bullet points for me. You can copy it, you can paste it, and you can go back and add it here underneath this section when you're highlighting your own work experience. So if you don't feel comfortable, going to speak to someone in the Office of Career Management or having help or having somebody take a closer look at your page, this is an easy way for you to have access to a resource right here for free that you can use to your advantage to help you build out your profile. All right. So 2 really great examples here, Nick Black and Laura Kay, right? So you can check those profiles out if you'd like, right? And as you can see, they have a headline. They have a headline here. That's what this is called, right? She's got a photo. She's got a picture here to kind of spice up her profile a little bit more, right? She's got Microsoft and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, for those of you that didn't know. So there's a lot of different ways to really stand out here. And again, she has the creator mode enabled. You don't have to. It just gives you a little bit more functionality so you can take advantage of that featured section that we talked about. Again, if you've been recognized, if you have awards and accolades, if you've been written about somewhere, this is where you want to highlight some of these key pieces here, right? You can see these are all links that she's put here that she wants people to go and click on and see. All right. What I want to do next is Jim shared this LinkedIn Learning, and I put the link in the chat for those of you that want to see that as well. Here, there's a ton of information, right? And so you can go up here in the top and you can just type in veterans and you can see what sort of stuff comes up in here. LinkedIn for veterans in the military community, human resources, right? Creating an employee handbook if you're trying to, create sort of resources for veterans within your organization one day, right? For folks like myself, maybe who want to go and hire some veterans, how to actually go about doing that the appropriate way. And there's going to be a lot of free materials available to you as veterans and also as folks that are going to have access to the premium LinkedIn feature, right? So a lot of really powerful information you can take advantage of, available to you on demand, 24/7, whenever you want to access it. You can, when you go through a lot of these courses, it'll also give you a certification that will automatically be added to your LinkedIn profile. So down there at the bottom where you saw Nick Black had all those different certifications, some of them were from LinkedIn, and all he had to do was complete one of these courses and it would show up on his profile, right? So LinkedIn Learning, super powerful, easy tool to use.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt. So I don't have the premium version. I just have LinkedIn 1.0, whatever it was, right?
Sure.
So as a mentor at a VRC, at a university, I'd love to share, hey, create your accounts. But before they do, are those courses available to students without having a profile built already?
So there are some courses available, but you have to just at least create the shell of your LinkedIn account. And then from there, there's a bunch of free resources. You can just click on LinkedIn Learning and you'll see what's available to you for free. And then once you activate that LinkedIn Premium, you'll have access to basically everything under the sun in there. And I put that link in the chat as well for those of you that want to be able to access your LinkedIn Premium account. And, at some of these Office of Career Management, these sort of places where you can go to get help, sometimes they give you free LinkedIn Premium. So I recommend you take advantage of that. It's a resource that you've earned.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I was just trying to figure out ways. Sometimes students will not build an account, even though you're trying to get them to do that. So I'm just trying to find maybe a softer approach on here. Take a look at this course. We're doing career boot camps and things of that nature. We're not teaching them how to fish. We just got to give them the pole.
Absolutely.
And the hook. So I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Kieran, if you are presenting to those students, you could pull up your profile, you could pull up those courses, flip the video on in presenter mode and hit play. Obviously, it's not as impactful as them doing it themselves, but that could be a way to work around that.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I'll use that. Thanks.
Absolutely. The next thing that I did is I went in here under my LinkedIn and I just searched in the search bar veterans, right? And then what I did is I just clicked on groups, right? So if I go up here and I type it again, veterans, right? And I just click on that guy there. At the top, there's a bunch of these different filters that are available to you up here. I just clicked on groups, right? And the reason I'm pulling that up is go through here and figure out which of these groups feel like a good fit for you, right? This is an easy place for you to go and have something genuinely in common with folks already, right? So if you fought in Iraq, for example, right, and you're a veteran of that, you can join that group and you can start to build relationships there. Some groups are private, and so they'll want to verify your information. They may even reach out to you to make sure that you are who you say you are and that, you know, your information coincides with the group that you're trying to join. But this is another really great place to build some genuine relationships with folks that have something in common with you, right? So definitely take advantage of that. And then, you know, I want to talk a little bit about jobs, right? Ultimately, we all want to be able to earn a living and be able to do that through, you know, going through and finding a job that's relevant for us, right? And so what I'll do is I'll just use this example here, manager strategic engagement. So when you click on this here, right, and I'm going to talk about the premium features in a second. When you click on this here, there's been a lot of different initiatives to make jobs a little bit more transparent for everybody to understand the flow and understand what the pay looks like, where it is, if it's a hybrid role. There's a number of different ways that you can filter this information in here. And so when you land on a job and a job description, this is what you'll see. It'll obviously tell you a little bit about the job, right? You can see the salary for this job here is pretty well paying, right? It's Google, right? You can see the experience they're looking for, or the size of the company, what they do, how many people you know that work for this organization. And then it gives you a little bit of information about the job. What are some of these qualifications, right? And so, you know, back to your question, Gage, if you are looking for a software engineering job and you go through here and you look at the preferred qualifications, 5 or 6 jobs, and you keep seeing the same keywords, and that's something that's relevant to you, and you're trying to make sure your profile is reflective of that, you could take some of those keywords and again incorporate them into the description that you have on your actual profile so that it fits and it matches. And when you go through and you start to apply for some of these jobs, now you are more likely to get hit by one of these recruiters looking for someone with that specific background. If we go a little further, obviously you can see a little more of the sort of description of the job itself, what they'll ask of you to do, right? If there is pay specified, you'll see that here, right? LinkedIn Premium gives you a little bit more functionality to tell you what are some of the different skills that you possess. See, I am not a good fit for this job, right? And it's telling me that, and that's all right. At least I know. 9 skills missing, right? There's all this stuff here: journalism, communications, attention to detail. I don't know about that one, right? 10 skills other applicants have, right? Social media, strategic planning, all these good things that can really help me determine if this is a good fit for me or not. The other thing that I want to call out too is, you know, if you scroll down here, you can learn a little bit more about the company, right? You can see any sort of employee content that's been shared by them. So if you're seeing someone like this guy, Steve, right, posting about his job at Google, he's probably proud, right? And so that could be somebody that you could reach out to and say, hey, Steve, I'm a veteran. I really want to learn a little bit more about careers at Google. I noticed your post, wanted to have a conversation with you about it. And I'm sure he, you know, as someone who's active on the platform, he's more likely to respond and to want to build a relationship with you, right? The other thing I wanted to call out is when you get access to your LinkedIn Premium, right? Now we have some of these artificial intelligence pieces here that tells me, am I a good fit for this job, right? So if I click on it, what it'll do is it'll review my profile, it'll review the job description that's in here, and it'll spit this thing on the side out here for me that'll tell me whether or not it thinks I'm good or not, right? So you can see already it's telling me, okay, based on your leadership role inside the green room, that aligns well. You have extensive background in customer success and sales and entrepreneurship, right? So there's some information in here, right, that kind of tells me the likelihood of me either getting this job or some things that it recommends for me to do to be a good fit for this job, right? I could not find a strong emphasis on experience in government advocacy, XYZ, on your profile, right? So if I left that out for some reason, I need to go back in and add that experience so that then it's even more tailored to this specific job, right? And I see we've got something in the chat here. Let me see. Okay.
It's just me, sir.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So there's that piece, right? And then, you know, The other thing too is what you could do is you could go into here and you could just click on the jobs guy here, and you could literally go through and you could just start to kind of create what your preferences are. So on the left-hand side here, one of the things you want to do is make sure you toggle this thing on, open to work, which tells people that, hey, I am actually available if you want to hire me, right? And you can specify what exactly you want folks to hire you for, right? What kind of things do I want? Do I want an on-site job? Do I want to be hybrid? Do I want to be fully remote? Right? Are there specific job titles you're looking for? I'm not currently looking for a job, so I don't have this on. But for all of you, it makes your profile stand out amongst the rest of the crowd. And so this is an easy place to say, I'm looking for a full-time job. I want recruiters only to see me available, or I want all LinkedIn members to see me available, right? So this is another great tool that I think you should take advantage of. Also, we all have an idea in our mind of how much we would like to be paid, right? There's a minimum pay. What's the least amount of dollars you're willing to accept, right? So that's another great place to specify that and be able to actually, have some filters in place that fit your job descriptions. All right. Job alerts, again, it's a really important thing to be able to stay on top of some of these with so many people in the job market. The faster you can get to a job sometimes, if you can be one of the first applicants, the greater likelihood you'll have to be able to have a shot at getting that job. So some really powerful tools that you can use here in the job section. And the last thing that I want to show you is on my profile here specifically, what I did is I went back as far as I could to my job experiences. And the reason that I want to show you this is I don't think that there's any job that is too small or insignificant that you should leave off, right? My first job on paper was a cashier at Taco Bell, and I've got that here and I'm proud of that. Right. And folks literally reach out to me. Today I'm an entrepreneur. I run a couple different businesses, but I started my working career, my professional career at Taco Bell, right? Taking orders and helping customers get what they need, right? So you could consider that customer service or however you want to look at it. There's a number of different ways you could paint that. There's not one job or one experience that is too insignificant or too small that you should leave out of here. So if there's something that you've done that you can point to that shows your experience level, this is a great place to go and highlight that. Right? So I'll stop there. I know we're at time here. Any questions about what you've seen? Any questions about, information that's available to you here on the platform?
Before we get into questions, are you guys good for maybe another 30 minutes? I know, Jim, you've got a little one, so I'm more worried about your time, but as long as the students can stay, Amjad and Jim, you got a little more time?
I got about another 15 minutes and then I've got to run to a dinner, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody's got.
I have a crying 2-year-old on my lap, which is why my camera is off, but I can give you guys a couple.
No, we want you on. We want to see that on camera. Before we get into questions, Mike just had a couple of things he wanted to go over with everybody real quick.
Hey, I just want to mention before we break, if anyone's leaving, the next one of these that we're going to have is going to be in February. It's going to be February 20th, and it'll be the first of our 2 employer panels. We have typically tried to get about, what a cute little one there. We've tried to get about 5 or 6 employers at least. And last year it was the most popular thing we offered. And so the students asked to do more of those. So we're going to do 2. So we'll do one in February, one in March, but it's February 20th, and I'll be sending out a save the date to remind you of that. So I just wanted to catch that before everybody took off, if you are dropping, and appreciate everybody who can stay and your time with Jim and Amjad.
Yeah, absolutely. A really great question here, April. And that is something that I actually spend a lot of time talking to folks about. So, April's question is, can you talk a little bit about the importance / value of posting on the platform and engaging with posts? So on the platform itself, again, recruiters are able to see the people that are actually using the platform to build their professional brand, right? This is your profile that lives online that talks about your experience level and what you are interested in, your background, all that kind of stuff. I think there's no better place than LinkedIn to go and share content, whether it's influencers that you follow, right? I follow, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, for example, right? And I'll see things that they're talking about when it comes to advocacy for education or, economic development. And when I find something that's interesting and I want to share it with my network, I either reshare it and add my 2 cents, or I just reshare the post, I think it's extremely important because it allows for you to show up, right? This is a platform where you get the most out of it that you put into it, right? Again, we talked about adding a picture, adding a bio, adding all these different details that could really make a big difference for you. Also, I showed you the example earlier of the gentleman at Google who was posting about his experience working at Google, and he's proud of that, right? And so because he was doing that, if you wanted to reach out to him and build a relationship with him, you see that he's active. It allows for him to have it allows for you to have a more genuine conversation with him because you see something that he shared, and now you can interact with him, and it makes it easier that way, right?
The one thing that I would add to that is that when you post something out there, it's out there, it doesn't go away. So make sure that it is something that's professional, right? I don't want to get into politics or religion or those topics that can be polarizing. And you're welcome to do what you want. But if you post something that is, for example, I own guns, right? So I'm a firearm owner. I've taken safety courses. My guns are locked up, right? That's not something that I would necessarily post on LinkedIn because that could draw negative attention to me. That could rub somebody the wrong way. That could have a negative impact on, somebody seeing that and then screening me out of a position. So I would recommend you kind of stay away from those topics and generally keep LinkedIn as a professional version, and leave the other stuff to Instagram and maybe to Facebook. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that are on the platform today that are also influencers, and I say that not in a way that they're sharing, products and things like that. Influencers in the sense that they've become an expert at something, right? Or they interview people and they spend time sharing the things that they've learned about. Folks oftentimes will ask me, I want to break into venture capital, or I want to break into sports, or I want to break into tech, right? And I oftentimes I say to them, if you don't already have experience in that, one of the easiest ways you can demonstrate the value or demonstrate the fact that you're learning about it is to interview people or to just have casual conversations with people, even if it's a 15-minute conversation, and then share what you learned with that person's approval, right, on your LinkedIn. You can write articles, you can write posts if you'd like, you can make a video if you'd like. So I think that that's a really important way to show up on the platform. Again, being mindful of what you share, making sure it's appropriate for the platform. And then the other thing that I think is oftentimes a little bit overlooked is, I spend a lot of time coaching salespeople as part of my role. And one of the things that I share with them is you are 80% more likely to close a deal when you are selling something to somebody when it comes through a warm introduction, right? A warm introduction is, I know Mike and Mike can introduce me to Keenan. Mike and Keenan already have a relationship, right? I could say, hey, Mike, as long as I know Mike and Mike is familiar with my background and what I do and what I stand for, and we have a relationship, Mike could say, yeah, Amjad, I really like your background. I think Keenan would be interested in hearing what you have to say. Let me introduce you, right? So the power of warm introductions and the power of using that network could be so valuable to you. I've closed business on LinkedIn. I've met friends, lifelong friends on LinkedIn. I share articles and content with my friends on LinkedIn. Keenan and I, we connected on LinkedIn, right? It's a really, really great, powerful tool to use to your advantage.
Yeah, big plus one to that. Absolutely leverage those networks, whether it's, a friend of a friend or somebody you went to college with, or, somebody that you met, as a high school lifeguard, right? Those are all great ways to make connections, and it's a very small world out there. You'd be very surprised.
Yeah. The other thing you could do too, as you look to kind of incorporate this into your daily life, I keep my LinkedIn tab on my computer open all day. And I use the LinkedIn app, right? As part of my morning routine when I'm checking emails and reading the news or listening to podcasts or whatever it is, I'll open up my LinkedIn as well. And I make it a habit to scroll through and see what sort of changes have happened in my network, see who's been promoted, see whose birthday it is, see who's celebrating something, see who's commenting on things or sharing things on the platform. And again, that's a really easy way to just stay engaged, stay active, stay connected, and to show people that you're on the platform in a genuine way, right? You're going to meet people along your life and along your career that you meet in very random occasions sometimes. And you can stay in touch with them and kind of have an idea of who they are and what they're doing just by opening up the platform on a regular basis. we scroll all the way on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and all these different places already. Why not add something that's going to benefit you, right? I tell the salespeople that I work with, might as well scroll for dollars, right?
Any
Yeah,
other questions? We're gonna use the 10-second rule. So if we don't have it, we're gonna give 10 seconds of blank air. We're gonna end the session. So seriously, this is the time. We'd love to have you all engaged if you have a question. Mike's got a question.
I don't have a question, but many of you have heard from us that, we have what we call 6 pillars of success, things like internships and mentoring and networking. And if you look at it, pretty much all 6 of them, you could benefit through LinkedIn, including the academic resources, because they have LinkedIn Learning. So while I will tell you it's just a tool at the end of the day, and you need to do all of those things to be competitive for that job that you're trying to get, LinkedIn can actually help you with all 6 of them if you look at it that way too. So it's a very powerful tool to help with all the things that we believe and employers believe are what you need to do to succeed and be competitive for your job. And you need to hit all of them, but LinkedIn can help with all of those. So it's a great place to start if you haven't.
And like I said, don't be afraid, right? This platform is yours, right? I think just mind what you say on the platform and use it to your advantage. Build relationships, right? Incorporate it into your daily routine, into your daily life, and treat it like it's your digital phone book. As your network grows, the number of folks that you can build relationships with and you can stay in touch with and you can reach out to, you never know. Maybe you'll be in a position one day to hire some folks, and an easy place to go and share a job is to your existing network, right? That could be a great place to say, hey, I met this woman or this gentleman or whoever, and I want to hire this person because I've known them for a long time. I see the things that they've written about. I see the things that they're doing in their career, right? You can reach out to people and send them a connection request if they have an interesting background and say, hey, I saw you're a veteran as well, and you work for OpenAI, or you work for Google, or you work for Nike, whatever, you work for Chipotle, you name it. I'd love to learn a little bit about your background. Would you mind sharing 15 minutes with me? You'd be surprised the amount of people that are willing to share their time and share knowledge with you, and it costs them nothing, right? A lot of people actually are kind people, right? And actually want to help people. So I think it's a great place for you to go do that and meet people that you otherwise wouldn't meet in your day-to-day life, right?
Okay, last call. Any other questions? Okay, with that, then we'll say thank you, good night. We'll end the recording session. Again, it'll be available on the NVLF website, as well as we'll send it out to all of your campus office leads, so they will have this content as well. So thank you again, Jim. Thank you again, Amjad. 2 years in a row, you guys have done a great job. And we will hit you up again next year. So stay up to date. We'll be back in 12 months to do this again. But in the meantime, thank you all for attending and joining us. And feel free to reach out to your office leads, reach out to the NVLF with any questions that you have, and we're happy to help any day of the week. So